Good morning. It's late. It's after 6. This is Negotiating with Jesus. Tom here, Negotiating with Jesus. So today I don't feel like I had to prepare some great message, but as I thought about it, I'm thinking about stories, and I'm thinking about how stories overlap. How when you tell your story, other stories are going to edge their way in. So my story, I'm at this new division where I feel like is the end run of my story, and I'm supposed to sprint to the finish. And this summer I'm supposed to race my 11-year-old. A foot race, and my bum knee and my aging body. It's funny, when I run now, I can tell that I probably should walk. I can tell that my body is, or my mind is saying, are you really trusting this thing at this speed? Because everything feels a little rickety. It feels like something might break off and down I will go, and I know my body is saying, you hit that ground, you're not going to get up very quick. And I'm trying to overcome the fear and trying to train a little, but I'm not doing any running training. Anyway, so my story is I'm going to race my daughter this summer. That's part of the goofy story of humans. So I'm an older guy with younger kids, freshly divorced, so now I'm a single dad. So all the dumb things of life, you can not tell anybody the dumb things because it would be embarrassing or shaming. I saw a video where people were talking about, these young people are too transparent, you shouldn't share everything. And it's like, and then Food Truck Emily goes on and, well, I shared a lot of things, and because she's good looking, well, sorry, Food Truck Emily, but she's this beautiful young woman, and everyone all of a sudden changes their tone, and it's like, oh no, we're not talking about you, Food Truck Emily, we love you. And it's all these men who are like, a woman comes in and they lose their flipping minds. And not to diminish your story, just to say that life is funny, and different people they just have different access, some easier, some harder. Some people's stories are hard to hear. Some people's stories are easy to hear. And it's very strange, and I'm not trying to explain that. But so my goofy story and my transparency. So what I was going to talk about was the way other people's stories come into your story. So I have this way that I divide my life, and it's not exactly right. I'm just making some arbitrary marker. So young man, some personality that's a little bit of a troublemaker, but I'm not really a troublemaker. I'm a little bit of a goof off. Whatever I am in school, I talk too much. And that has plagued me my whole life. And I still talk too much. And it even happens at work, where I'm going today. The past couple days I haven't been real talkative. But I really love being with these people, and I want to say hi, and I want to communicate. I want to interact with them. But I should be like a slave labor. I should just be sitting at my bench, just doing work, and like making a child making Nike sneakers, and just make the sneakers, and some guy with a whip cracking the whip, or you're in a boat, you're pulling oars, the Viking ship, and you better be pulling those oars and better not be talking. And I'm not really like that. So people's stories get on each other. So I was at the beginning of my life a little bit of a goof off, a little bit talking too much, and I looked at an old report card, and in like 4th grade I'm talking too much. And not bad, and I do okay. I'm an average student. I'll do much worse when drugs get involved. In my grades, till I graduated, I was barely passing. Barely. I just barely got out of high school. I was failing everything. Yeah, there you go. So drug use till I'm about 24, I start hearing about this Jesus character. 27, this first division is when Shelley is killed in a car crash, and that's on my story with Paul, my first story. And it was shocking enough that it was like hitting an iceberg. I just listened to Tom Holland and Sandberg, and they did a 6-part series on the Titanic. The Titanic hits the iceberg, and then it changes direction. Instead of going to America, it goes to the bottom of the ocean. So Shelley was an iceberg. And instead of going to I went to the bottom of the ocean. Or I was in this hell. So drug use, I'm trying to find a way out. And I deconstruct. All the people deconstructing, you can deconstruct the other way. I was in on the secular world. And so, Tom Holland, Dominion, Jesus is shaping the world, sure. But I deconstructed into church. I did not deconstruct out of church. I deconstructed because I needed a king. So Shelley dies, and all of a sudden I'm in church because of Ron. And I'm going to tell one story that's not mine a little bit because I asked permission several years ago. It takes me years to accomplish anything. So that first division is Shelley. And all of a sudden I'm a church man, and I'm like, I deconstructed and I left the world. I didn't deconstruct and leave church. I deconstructed and left the world. And I'm like, this is now my life. Screw you guys. And it's the same as somebody saying, screw the church. Well, who's in a church? Regular people that can offend you or whatever. And they have some system, some way of living, and they don't do it well. And who cares? What kind of moron thinks you're going to deconstruct and go into a world where now everything's perfect? Get out of the church because there are too many hypocrites there. Oh, there are no hypocrites in the rest of the world. It's like, oh, people, we're dopey. We're pretty dopey. So then it's church. And I, for whatever reason, I am drawn towards youth ministry. I was young. And kids, they seem innocent. And I just deconstructed from the world, and I want them to live in this place where I think is an enchanted world. Because Jesus, there's a king who rises from the dead, and he heals, and he restores, and it's the world where enchantment lives. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm listening to C.S. Lewis and Ravi Zacharias and G.K. Chesterton, and all this stuff is coming together to me, whatever. And I'm listening to the Newsboys. If you get what you don't deserve, it's a real good thing. If you don't get what you deserve, it's a real good thing. Newsboys. And I get into music, and I become a Christian music, Christian rock and contemporary Christian music. So that's my new life. Shelley, then a new life. And it's youth ministry, and it's music. And I'm in the church, and I'm not going anywhere. I deconstructed. This is my new world. And it's the world of enchantment. It is the world of enchantment. Now, when I go outside and I see, flowers leap from the ground like fireworks, they jump up and then poof, and it just happened because spring, because the dead world comes to life, and it's Narnia. It's the cold winter, and then all of a sudden, poof, life just jumps from the ground. So I'm in that world, and then in 2001, we have this crazy crash into the towers. And then a crazier crash happens. Young Brandon, he's my boy, he's my youth student. And he crashes. And it's another marker that changes my world in some way. So Brandon, my 16-year-old student he was my guy. He showed up. And I suck as a youth leader. But there are a couple kids who they don't think I'm an idiot. They don't think I suck. So Brandon was my guy, and then he crashed, and that tower fell. So that was the first death in Lebanon County in 2002. And it was terrible, and it was tragic, and it was the second part of my life. So from then on, and shortly after I quit youth ministry, I quit the band. Sometime around there, a lot of things ended. So the Christian band that I was in ended. And I was trying to get out of blue-collar work into white-collar work because I was tired and dirty. And strangely, I'm right back to where I started. Because life is a series of unfortunate events. It is a series of unfortunate events. So that's the end of the first half of my life. And then I'm rebuilding again. My world falls apart. No kidding. I'm looking for white collar, and my life radically changes. I get a job at a drug rehab, and now I don't have to get dirty, but I'm working third shift, but it's easy. And then I decide to go to take classes at the local community college. So I'm taking classes, working night shift. And then, I decide, I'm thinking, if I don't get married and have a family, whatever that enchanting thing in the world is that has captured humanity for all of human history, marriage and a family seems to be this stable foundation for all of human history. And the most magical, enchanting thing happens there. A child leaps in the womb, and it's John the Baptist. It's Jesus. It's every child who's ever born is a miracle. And people know it. And you can watch the PBS documentary on Nova, Life's Greatest Miracle. And the scientific community, these scientists who are studying a human, how a human comes into the world. And they title it Life's Greatest Miracle. And they don't believe in miracles. Yes, they do, because there they said it. Their actions speak louder than their words, which spoke pretty loud. Life's greatest miracle. So you can see the development of a human. And it's insane. And it can't make sense, and you can't optimally grasp it. Your optimal grip. So, Shelley, first quarter of my life. Brandon, first half of my life. And then I'm in this new part where I get married. And now, boom, my whole world falls apart again. So I'm in this, so that's the next quarter of my life is from around 2000 to 2020. Let's say 2002. In 2020, guess what happens in 2020? That everybody's story gets into. COVID gets on everyone. My mom passes. My wife leaves me. I lose my job because at this point I had gone to community college. I had thought about getting married. I found a woman who was willing, had children, got a job as a full-time youth minister. It was the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me. Everything was perfect. It was the most beautiful life that sprung out of, a complete destruction. Everything, it's the story of Job. Everything is lost, and then so much is gained. My life is perfect. Whatever it is perfect. And yet, I don't have a perfect life. I'm still not that great of a youth minister, but I'm blessed enormously. And then COVID, and then my mom, and then, so my mom dies with COVID. My wife leaves, and that divorce process just finished this summer. I have 2 beautiful children. It's the best thing that ever happened. Now, it's not an easy thing, but it's a wonderful thing. And it's too wonderful for me. I can't manage miracles that are too big for me. I'm very fortunate. If I do anything right as a parent, I'll be very fortunate. And, the saying that you don't get an owner's manual, You get these children, and it's really too much, and all humans carry that. It's too much for them. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they have in their hands. You don't know how wonderful or how tragic this story is. It's put in your hands, and God trusts you with the most precious thing that there is. And for all your foolishness, God says, I don't give burdens that are too hard. And he gives you a child. And you see people all the time, and you're thinking, that person shouldn't have a child. What the flip do you know about it? Are you the author of this story? No. So the story goes on, and then in the 2020s, the whole thing comes apart again. Of course it does. That's the nature of stories. And it's another death, which I'm not going to get into, but it's death, it's collapse, it's loss, and then it's rebuilding. So whatever this part of my life is, I'm in it. I'm in the story. I don't know what the flip to do. I didn't get the script. I just say words that there's some kind of script. God has some kind of plan. So let me just close with this other story. So I asked a young woman, I have friends because I'm in the church, and great tragedies happen all the time in the church. There are people there. Of course there's tragedies. Of course some of it looks like it's our fault. It's the same everywhere. Inside the church, outside the church. I'm going to deconstruct and get to a better world where there's only good people, and then leave the church. Like, good heavens. Yeah, good luck. So, I won't say any names, I guess. There's a guy I worked with where I work now, because I'm back again after 20 years. I came back to the place that I wanted to leave so that I could get a white-collar job, because it was hard work. And now I'm old doing hard work. So we would go on mission trips in my other church. I have 3 churches in my life, and I don't leave churches. I don't church hop. I just saw a video about church hopping. I don't church hop. I go 10 or 20 years in a church, and then I go where so there's some kind of direction. I don't church hop. So I'm with this church. They go to Redbird, Kentucky, and it's a Methodist mission, and they go into this Appalachian community that is just remote, and you don't have cell phone coverage, and it's just, you're in the sticks, baby. And you go there and you repair people's trailers, and it's these families who are living in this remote area, and this mission was built, and they have a school, and they try and care for a 100-mile radius of the community in Appalachia. So my church would go there every 2 years. We went, and we always take as many students as I can talk into coming, or their parents can talk into coming. There's a young girl who went early on, and now, but we keep going back every 2 years. Now she's a mother, and she has a 10 or 12-year-old girl going with her. My daughter went. So I talked to her a little bit about her story, and her story gets into my story, and stories, they aren't just yours. It's very strange, other people's stories. So I'm at where I work. There's a character and a family who live in this area, and they're drinkers and brawlers and poachers and whatever they are. They're this wild, backwoods folk family that just is crazy. They're crazy. And they're also normal, but one of the guys works at the shop, his brother. At that time, we were getting into racing. So I kind of got along with this guy. And he'd come in every morning stinking of alcohol, and he's smoking, and he's cussing, and he's just a wild character. He's a little out of control, but I get along with him fine. I love him. he's a wreck. He's a wreck of a person, but he's made in God's image, and whatever it is, I like him. His brother, I don't like. His brother can notch it up and get way more dangerous. This guy just doesn't seem dangerous to me. We were into NASCAR at the time. We went to a race. We went to the Dover 500. It was a 500-mile race. You know, I'm not telling that story. It was terrible. We stayed in a trailer. We were going to watch the Dover 500. We went for the Busch race and then the Cup race. We stayed overnight at a trailer. We watched the Cup race. We stayed overnight. These guys were drinkers and brawlers, and it was some regular guys drinking a little bit, having fun. Just guys drinking beer. Now, I was a church guy, and I didn't want to drink. I never could drink. If they were doing drugs, I could keep up. They were doing alcohol. I didn't want to throw up. So 9 or 10, I'm like, I'm not interested in staying up till all these guys are drunk and way harder to manage. They're hard to manage at the start. And especially this brother, who was a dangerous man. It seemed like a dangerous man. He's a drinker, a brawler, a poacher. You know, he's a hillbilly character. And he says things that sound like he could be dangerous. He threatens to take a knife and stick it where I sit. He says he's going to do that while I sleep because I'm going to bed. I'm not drinking with these guys. I go to bed. And he leaves me with that nightmare as I drift off to sleep. Here's what I'm going to do while you're sleeping. I'm going to take a knife. And it's like, well, I don't know what to do about that. I'm just going to not believe him. I go to bed. And the weekend progresses, and whatever minor brush with hell it wasn't as bad as it would get. A year or two later, a couple years later, there's a news report locally that this guy who was going to stick a knife where the sun don't shine was locked in a trailer with his girlfriend, and he had a gun, and he was threatening her, and she was locked in the bathroom. And this is the mom of the girl I went to Redbird with. I talked about her story, and I said, could I ever tell this story? Would it hurt you too much if I shared this story because it gets into my story? This man threatened to stab me with a knife. Now he's locked up with your mom, and the police, it's a hostage situation. The police come, and they're negotiating how can they rescue this woman who's with this psycho man who everyone knows is kind of a psycho man. It's not like the police have never heard of this guy. They've had some run-ins. He's a local scoundrel. Well, the story goes the police are negotiating and finally talk this guy into letting his girlfriend go. We can trust him. Just let her come out. He says, okay, I'll let her come out. Honey, you can come out now. The police have talked me, a total psycho, into letting you go. She comes out of the bathroom, and he shoots her to death. He kills her. And the whole thing, so this is the mom, the ex-wife of a friend, the mother of a sweet young girl who was in my youth group, grew up and has this sweet daughter, and I love watching this mom and her daughter. They have a very affectionate, beautiful relationship. And this happened. It was part of my story because the same man who threatened to stab me, the police are negotiating in good faith. Oh, he's a good faith actor. And this tragedy unfolds, and you're like, how can we not stop these tragedies? Everyone knew this guy's character. Let her come out. and he kills her, and now he's in prison for life. As far as I know. I ought to go up and visit him. So these stories that mark my life, they're other people's stories of death. They're these stories that are associated with me, but it's not my child. It's not my fiance. It's not my son. These stories happen. It's not my mom that's murdered. My mom died at like 83, 81 maybe. But these stories, you tell your story, but then it bumps into other stories. There's no way to have clear lines. Everything blurs. Every story affects another, and we don't know what the big story is. So I don't know if this came out like anything, but the idea that stories overlap, and we do get what other people are going through, and we don't know what other people are going through, and it's so crazy. So here I am at this last part, and I have a race ahead of me against my daughter. I have a race to my death. You know, everything collapsed, and now I'm trying to rebuild. You don't know how this story plays out, but you have a central role, and you act in good faith, as much good faith as you can. And here we are. That's it for today.